Hello, and thank you for joining me in my kitchen today. We are going to be making one of my favorite breads, buttermilk biscuits, and we are going to be having these. Oh, and there goes the preheat on the oven. We are going to be having these for dinners, of course, and well, for any meals really. But I'm also going to be using these to meal prep some breakfast biscuits to put in the freezer so that we can have those for a quick and easy breakfast, just to pop in the microwave or to pop in the oven to reheat for some easy breakfasts. So I'm going to make a video on those as well. I think I'm going to do a freezer breakfast meal prep video where I'm going to do maybe some breakfast burritos and some breakfast biscuits. So let's go ahead and jump into these buttermilk biscuits. So the first thing we are going to do is combine our dry ingredients. So we are going to need 5 cups of self-rising flour. This is a 2-cup measure. Woo! This container for flour is not the best. I need something with a wider mouth on it. And I'm going to level it off here just because we want to be pretty precise with this. So that's 4 cups. Let me get my 1 cup measure here. 5 teaspoons of sugar, which I already have measured out right here. Oh, and I need to go and grab myself a whisk. I did not bring one over here. Okay, so I've got my whisk, and I grabbed a spatula for my following steps. I'm also just going to add in a pinch of salt. This recipe uses salted butter, so we don't want to make it overly salty. So I'm literally just taking a pinch. This is Himalayan pink salt. It doesn't really matter what kind of salt. This is just what I have on hand. Excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and whisk these together to get this nicely incorporated. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my butter and my buttermilk. You want your buttermilk and your butter to be very cold. I know that some people like to freeze their butter and grate it in. I am not going to do that today. I've done that in the past, but I feel like it still yields really good results to just use very cold butter. So what I like to do is just leave my buttermilk and my butter in the refrigerator until right when I'm going to use it. So I immediately take it out of the refrigerator and incorporate it. I don't leave it sitting out on the counter at room temperature for any length of time. So I did go ahead and measure out my buttermilk a few minutes ago before I started recording, and just have it in the measuring cup in the refrigerator so I can go ahead and dump it in when I'm ready, and I have my sticks of butter in there. So as soon as I take them out, I'm going to go ahead and chop them up, and I just like to dice them up into small little chunks and incorporate that in. So I'm going to go ahead and grab those things now. So we have our butter. This is very cold. As I said, I just have pulled it out of the refrigerator and I'm immediately going to use it. We don't want to leave this sitting out at room temperature, and we don't want to overwork the dough once it's incorporated, because we want this butter to still be hard when the biscuits go into the oven. We want the heat of the oven to melt the butter inside the biscuits, and that's going to create those nice pockets and give you that really nice fluffy texture in the biscuit. So I'm just going to chop these. And like I said, this doesn't have to be perfect. but we do want it to be pretty small. We don't want to have just huge globs. And you can grate it when it's out of the refrigerator, but if it's super fine, it's going to be more likely that it's going to melt before you get it into the oven as you're working the dough. So I feel that it's easier just to cut it into chunks. So I've just cut my sticks of butter maybe into 4 and then dicing that up. And you can give it another little chop. All this is really rough because we're also going to incorporate this in with a fork. All right, there is my butter. Now I'm just going to take a fork. Some people like to just use their hands, but your hands are warm because of your body temperature. So again, we don't want to heat this butter up unnecessarily. So I like to use the fork just to break that butter up a little bit more and incorporate. So I'm just going to do this for a minute and help break down that butter a little bit more. And I'm just mashing it with the fork. I'm not blending it with a mixer. I'm not blending it with a whisk. I'm not using like a potato masher. I'm just using the pressure of my hand with the fork. And I'm splashing flour out. All right. Then in the middle here, I'm going to use my spatula and I'm just going to create a well in the middle. So that means I'm just going to push the flour and butter mixture off. Oh, I'm being such a messer today. I'm going to push the flour and butter mixture up towards the sides of the bowl so that it creates a hole in the middle. And that's where I'm going to pour my buttermilk. Again, this is straight out of the refrigerator, so it is very cold. And we're going to pour that straight in. And let me go ahead and take off my jewelry here because we're about to get our hands messy. And then I'm just going to start incorporating that flour. Now at this stage, this is going to be very sticky and messy, and that is what we want. Now that this is getting incorporated, I am going to go wash my hands one more time, and then I'm going to turn this out onto a lightly floured surface. So I'm going to pull my big cutting board over here, and then we are going to get into the process of rolling this out and cutting our biscuits. All right, now we have our rolling surface, and I've got a little bit more flour. I'm just gonna lightly flour this surface so that the dough does not stick. And I'm gonna turn this out onto there. Like I said, it's very sticky right now. And we don't want to put too much flour onto our surface because we don't want to dry the dough out. We don't want a dry biscuit. We want it to be really buttery and moist. So I'm just gonna work it a little bit with my hands to get that butter incorporated. But again, we don't want it to melt. So I'm just kneading it a little bit to get it all to kind of stick together. And then I am going to begin to pat it out. So what I'm doing is just kind of pressing it out so that it's kind of spreading out into a rectangle. And then I am going to begin to fold the sides in on each other, and that's what's going to give us like a nice layered fluffy biscuit. So it's rolled out to probably about 1/2 inch thick right now. I'm going to take one side, fold it towards the middle. Then I'm going to take the opposite side, fold it towards the middle. Take the top, fold it towards the middle. Take the bottom, fold it towards the middle. And then I'm going to go back to step 1 and just pat it down and go back to kind of forming my rectangle. And then after this step, I'm going to move you guys closer and we're going to go ahead and start cutting out our biscuits. Oh, and if I didn't say earlier, I said I was preheating the oven, but I don't think I said what temperature. 450 degrees is what we're going to bake these at. And you can bake these on a baking sheet, cookie sheet, but I'm going to do these in my cast iron. That helps them steam so nicely because not only because you want them to be touching so that the steam can stay packed in, it helps them rise up nicely, helps them stay moist. But in the cast iron, not only are they close together, but they have that raised edge, so it really helps keep the steam in. So that's what I'm going to be using today. All right, so there's my biscuit dough. I'm going to bring you guys in closer so that you can get a better look while we're cutting out the biscuits. All right, so I'm going to put some flour over here to the side, and this is what we are going to dip our biscuit cutter in. If you do not have a biscuit cutter, you can use a glass jar or a cookie cutter. I've used that in the past. I just recently actually got a biscuit cutter, but I really recommend getting one of these. It's pretty inexpensive. I got a set, I think of 5 of these for like $7 or $8 on Amazon, because this really does the trick and it's super easy to use. So we're just gonna dip this in here, and when you push down with your biscuit cutter, we are going to push straight down and lift straight up. We're not going to twist it while we're in there because we don't want to seal off those edges because it doesn't allow the biscuit to steam on the inside. So again, once we flour, we're going to find our spot, push it straight down, give it a good push, and pick it straight back up. And we're just going to keep repeating that. We're going to try to get them close together. And don't worry, all this extra, we're going to roll it out and do the same thing. We're going to get use out of all this dough. So I'm going to take these out, and oh, look at that. That is going to be a beautiful biscuit. My goodness, that looks absolutely lovely. And you can see, where was it? Some of that butter. I don't know if you can see tucked in the side right there. So I'm going to put these in my skillet here. This is a greased skillet, and I'm just going to lay these in here side by side. We want them to be touching so that they can steam together nicely. Okay, so let's roll it again. So once we're at this step, we're just gonna ball it back up and start back at patting it back out. Pat it back out to make our rectangle like we did before. And again, we want to work quickly because we don't want our butter to melt. We still see we have globs of butter in here, so we're doing all right, but we still want to work quick. And then we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to turn in one side. We're going to make it like a pamphlet. Turn in a third, and then on the other side, turn in a third. Then we're going to fold down a third from the top and a third from the bottom and make a little package here. Then I like to flip it over just so the seam's on the bottom and pat out our rectangle again. All right, and here's our biscuits. And I am going to repeat this one more time to finish off the rest of this dough, and then we will pop them in the oven. Okay, I got 10 out of that dough, so I ended up just being able to fit them into my 12-inch skillet. So I'm gonna pop these in the oven for about 12 minutes. And we will see how they turn out when they are all done. Here are our lovely biscuits out of the oven. I am going to apply some butter to the tops. And then we are going to give these a taste test. Look how tall these look, and just look at those fluffy and flaky layers. These are going to be absolutely delicious. I am so excited. So I'm just gonna coat each one with a little bit of butter. All right, here is one of our biscuits. Look at the height on this. This is literally like, I don't know, 3 inches tall. Size comparison. Beautiful flaky layers. All right, let's open this guy up. Oh, the steam. So good. Let me put in some butter. Oh, it's so hot still. Oh my goodness. Okay, let me just take this top a little bit. That is delicious. Wow, that's absolutely lovely. Definitely recommend that you guys try this recipe. Super, super easy. I know before I started making biscuits, I was super intimidated, but it's honestly so easy. And once you get started, you can't stop. It's just so good. You will never buy canned biscuits again. And that top is so crunchy. So, so good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please let me know if you try these biscuits. And thank you guys for spending time with me in the kitchen.